you're able to have a career choice that's a far more rewarding career choice when you're doing that. Because when you are only talking about the numbers and the return on investment, you don't have any control over what those investments are actually doing. So how involved are you? I mean, you are coming to offer, your offering for me is not something that you're really making that big a deal of a difference. Whereas when you are able to facilitate these kind of conversations, that's just so much more rewarding.
Welcome to episode 31 of the Innovating Advice Show. I'm joined by
Kim Potgieter.
And since I didn't want to butcher her name, I just inserted her own pronunciation. Thanks, Kim, and I will work on getting that right. Kim is the head of life planning at Chartered Wealth Solutions in South Africa. She is also the author of the book Retiremeant, with a play on that spelling. The founder of the Women in Finance Network, has a number of certifications, especially around coaching, and just launched a new virtual program for visionary financial planners. In this episode, we're talking through Chartered's innovative approach to retirement planning, which can and should be applied to clients of all ages, and how coaching is not separate from financial planning. Rather, coaching is financial planning done correctly. Links to everything we discuss, show notes, and the graphics we mention are at innovatingadvice.com/episode 31. You're listening to the Innovating Advice Show, and I'm your host, Kate Holmes, bringing you the global pulse on financial services innovation, featuring financial planners, financial advisors, and related professionals from all corners of the globe. Let's dive in. Hi, Kim. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me.
It's great to reconnect. Kim, we first met, 6 years ago when we were doing that roadshow throughout your beautiful country of South Africa. I have had the pleasure of many trips back there, have run into you multiple times, and it's fantastic to have you on the show. We've been having conversations about how people are handling the pandemic, about the future of the profession. So we've got a lot to dive into. And I want to start with talking about, you've been the director and head of life planning at Chartered Wealth Solutions for 12 years now, so tons of experience. And one of the super cool things is Chartered Wealth Solutions focuses on retirement. And I know for those listening, that sounds like a normal word, but it's spelled differently. So talk us through what retirement means.
So I think I'll just go back one step before I explain to you what retirement means. I did a change in careers. So I only came into the financial planning industry 12 years ago when I did a change in my life. And for me, it was very important that the life I was going to lead was one where I was going to be waking up every single day doing something that I absolutely love doing.
Awesome.
And I really created it. I was planning on becoming a psychologist, and then I realized that nobody goes to their psychologist to talk about money, and I wanted to talk to people about their relationships with money. And that's why I chose the profession of becoming a financial planner, because clients could then come to speak to me about their money. So where Retirement came from was 5 years ago, I wrote a book called Retiremeant with the A in it.
And I've got that.
Have you got it? Oh, good.
I do. I think I actually have it here in my little podcast studio somewhere.
And really what the book was about, it's like saying this is a time in your life where you can actually get to live your unfulfilled dreams, but in your own time and on your own terms. I wanted people to look forward to it. And that's hence why it's called Retirement. And sometimes people do write to me and tell me that I've spelt it incorrectly, but it's a good conversation starter.
Because it's spelled retire and then MEANT.
Exactly, because it was get more meaning from your money. So My whole thinking was, this is a time in your life where you actually can make sure you get way more meaning from your money as opposed to potentially a time before in your life.
Yeah. And you also have a personal story of what your parents went through. So share that story with us and how that impacted your focus on changing what retirement means and making it more meaningful.
Well, I think that was actually the catalyst that got me to change careers. So for many years, I'd spoken about wanting to help people with their relationships with money. And you know what it's like? We speak about it, and then a year goes by, and we speak about it again. And my dad, unfortunately, was killed in a hijacking. And for those of you that don't know what a hijacking it is, in our country, when somebody wants something from you, they often kill you for it.
Ugh.
And he was killed. He was 59 when he was killed. And I remember him so much, and it was devastating to me, absolutely devastating. And before he died, he had made a list of everybody that he wanted to invite to his 60th birthday party. And I found the list afterwards. And also the conversation we'd had so often was, when I retire, Kim, I'll do this. When I retire, I'm going to do this. So much of his life was being put on hold for when he retired. So for me, that was my catalyst that actually said to me, stop talking about what you're going to do, go into the industry. And that's when I made the change and studied to become a financial planner. And then, my mom at 63, she died of pancreatic cancer. So neither of them got to live their retirements. And so I think for me, this was something that I knew I wanted to do. So I went out and I did it. And every day, what I do is I help people plan their retirements. I help them look forward to it and get the most out of it. And so every day for me is a rewarding day. And it does often make me feel, that I miss my parents and what they didn't get to do. But actually, they've left a legacy, because now I'm able to do work like this, which is really does make a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. And that's wonderful to hear, when you are able to turn a trauma and a tragedy into something good, and using that personal story and drive to have an impact on other people. And I love how you guys talk about retirement is a beginning, not an end. And I spent the first 10 years that I was in the profession working with retirees and people heading into retirement, and they never knew what they wanted to retire to. They just knew that they wanted their current life to end. They were tired of working. They didn't like their job, whatever it was. All they were looking forward to is, I'm ending something, without a whole lot of thought on what they were beginning. And you guys have this great wheel of balance. So share with us what that is. And I'm going to, if it's okay with you, include that in the show notes, because it's super cool. And I was even thinking of printing it and putting it up in my space here.
With absolute pleasure. And people can actually go to our website, retiresuccessfully.co.za, and they can take the balance test for themselves and see how balanced their life is. But really for me, and we talk about it often with all our clients, what are you retiring to, not from? Exactly what you're saying. Okay? They come in and they say, I don't want this, I don't want that, and I don't want that. So then I say, well, what do you want? And actually, for many of them, their dreams have been buried so deep, really very deep. So I do a process called Disney coaching with them, where I say, for our meeting, I want you to leave your critic out of the room. And their critic is in their heads, because most of our biggest critic lives inside our heads.
Yes.
And I say, let's go back and let's just dream. Let's not think of what we can't achieve. Let's think of what we would achieve. What would this next chapter look like if it turned out well? And yes, exactly, for many people, they can't even start. And that's where the balance wheel came in. And so I go through the balance wheel, all 8 areas, and I say each area, from money to health to give back to relationships, all of these 8 areas are equally important. Now tell me about each one of these areas. What is something you want to do in each one of these areas? And when we work that way, it actually gets them to, I call it planting seeds. We start planting seeds. And then when I meet them for the next meeting, they come back with a lot more ideas of all the things they want to do, because kind of you've given them permission.
Yep.
You've given them permission to dream again, and they get really excited about it.
And the 8 things, like you said, it covers work, giving back, relationships, money, learning, health, purpose, play. It's all those things. And I was fascinated when I saw it, because I was like, yeah, we do need to be balanced. And for myself, and I would guess most people, work probably takes up the majority of it. Health, probably not enough. Play, maybe not enough. It is that need for balance. And Kim, I know you focus on retirement, but this seems like something that people of every age should do.
Absolutely. And I encourage anybody to do the Wheel of Balance test. I mean, that's not just for people in retirement, but really for me, I'm also trying to encourage people to not look at this finish line of retirement. So my conversation is quite different in the sense that I don't believe in not working. But what I don't believe in is overworking. So really, Kate, the conversation we're having, we could be having it with a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old. It's no really different, because we should all be living our lives like that. And I do think it's not always about being balanced, but it's about being engaged in all those areas. Because so many people I meet have holes, have big gaps where they're not spending any time on relationships, or, as you said, not looking after their health because they're giving all their time to work. And the only reason we're wanting to retire and stop working is because we've overdone it.
Yep.
So being able to bring it more balanced would mean that you potentially might not be thinking of stopping work at 60. You might be thinking of just carrying on.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I always talked with people about. And I kind of realized over time in working with retirees for so long is it really is true. The people that love what they do don't want to stop working. And it's actually those conversations that has propelled me through many of my own life decisions and career changes, and how I built my prior financial planning practice, was realizing how often those dreams get buried, and people go through life, thinking and knowing that they're doing the right thing, but it may not be the right thing for them. And having those conversations around, okay, what do I want my life to look like? Because I don't want to wait, and have a situation like your parents had. And I saw that with clients as well, that would say, hey, I'm working, had built successful practices and businesses, and had one client that, just the kindest man ever, went in for a routine outpatient surgery. Something went wrong and he ended up losing his life to it, like weeks into his retirement. And so many of those things have got me thinking, that's not what it should be about. It should be finding something hopefully earlier in your life. And it could just be those hobbies that you're so passionate about, that you're going to make sure that you do have that balance, so that it's not work taking over your life and suffering your health and your relationships.
And Kate, what I have found is people that don't start hobbies before they actually retire, if we're looking at retirement in its old definition, they don't actually ever do those hobbies. So I love speaking to younger groups of people and saying, and I've learned it also from people who have retired and said to me, if only I'd known this stuff when I was younger.
Yep.
So starting the hobbies, it's not a bad thing, because you don't know what that hobby is going to grow into. You don't know what that give back initiative might become your purpose. So just thinking that work can satisfy everything for you is also a very unrealistic expectation of work. And I think that's a lot of times why people can be so disappointed by it, because they're putting all this pressure on work having to fulfill every one of their needs. And by the time they do get on holiday, they're so exhausted that they can't even enjoy their holidays. So this is definitely a conversation, totally agree with you, for absolutely every age.
Yep. And I realized one of the things that I used to tell my clients is, if you have an option to that exact point, because the amount of times I would talk to people 6 to 12 months into retirement, and they'd say, oh, well, my garage is extra clean. And yep, I played golf enough, and they're kind of over it. I realized, okay, people almost could use a practice run. And so when I left my job in September, everyone was saying, well, what are you going to do? And what's your next job? And I was like, I'm going to do a mini retirement. Because you're right. So often we don't discover what those things are. And I was like, I have no idea. I have been completely open to whatever the universe brings and exploring different things and kind of going, I want to force myself to experience that. Okay, you have nothing. You have nothing to wake up for. You have, nothing to go do. What am I going to do with that time?
So there's two things I want to say there about what you're going through. You have got age on your side, in the sense that you can take a sabbatical and you can really think about it, because it's going to be easier to start again. But when I'm working with clients who are coming up to 60, I often do encourage them to take some time off, but then again, I encourage them not to take too much time off. I've seen way too often when they take the time off to think about it, they lose their confidence, and it becomes so much harder to come back in. So the way I like to do it is start earlier with like a parallel life. So not to leave it all until they retire. So parallel changes quite a way back. And we start trying new things to see what they like so that when they come into retirement, it's an easier transition for them. I don't want, and I'm using my hands to illustrate it, but I don't want their graph to go downwards, and I talk about their fulfillment graph. What I want is for them more to be prepared for it so that when they do come into it, they've already found the hobbies, they've already found interests and things that they want to be doing. And then I found those people cope with retirement much better and get much more fulfillment from it.
Yeah. And one of the ways you do that, Kim, is through the bucket wheel, which was also a super cool concept. Another graph I'll include in the show notes, along with links to the website you mentioned. So share with us what the bucket wheel is and how much that totally changes conversations about retirement.
Okay, so the bucket wheel actually is the foundation for me of a financial plan. But where the bucket wheel came from is we always used to do the bucket list with our clients from the movie, all the things that they still wanted to do with their lives. And when I used to do it with the clients, many times it was play, and they were going to go on this trip, they were going to do this mountain, they were going to do this. Anyway, so that's, you learn through the years. And one day the one client came into me and she said to me, I just want to tell you, I'm 3 years into retirement now. If I go on one more holiday, or I do one more play thing, I'm going to go mad. And she said to me, really, we should be looking at your balance wheel and we should be coming up with ideas for all 8 areas, because I was doing the balance wheel with them at the time. And then it came, let's do the bucket wheel. So it's the balance list. It's the bucket list with the balance wheel, put them on together. And so now what I get clients to do is to come up with areas on all 8 of things they want to do. So potentially for relationships, it might be amending a relationship with somebody that is long time gone. On a health, it might be something they want to do. It might be some give back initiative they want to do. It might be a degree that they want to go back and do. And what we do is we take all of these ideas that they come up with, we put monetary values to them, and that becomes the foundation of what they want to achieve. And we can then look at what money they've got, and we can see if the money they've got can give them the life they want. And interestingly enough, often on the bucket wheel, it doesn't always involve money. So some of the things are going on a picnic or going to watch their grandson play a hockey game. So it's also showing them these are what's going to involve money, these are not going to involve money. And it makes the conversation so much richer. And all of a sudden they see the connection between what I call life planning and their financial plan that they've come in to do. And the financial plan becomes theirs. It's their personal financial plan. It's not some lot of assumptions we're making about their life that potentially we thought of.
So, Kim, as we're talking, these are not conversations that you're trained to do as a financial planner through traditional designations and qualifications. How did you learn to develop all these conversations that are providing incredible value to your clients? And as you said, to you, giving you that purpose and motivation to wake up excited to do your job every day?
So, Kate, I think first of all, I'm just that kind of person as well.
That helps.
It does help. But they're definitely skills that can be learned. So nobody can say they can't do it. They're skills that you learn. But I do think naturally it was something I've always been interested in. I did go to university many years ago and study psychology. And actually, when I was in my early 20s, I wrote a letter to the head of our unit trust association. And I said to her, all of 20 something, I would like to change the financial planning industry. They have something that's missing. And I still have the letter that she wrote back to me, dear Kim, good luck. Anyway, fast forward 10 years. And as I said, I did nothing with it. I carried on and only came into the industry 12 years ago. But I knew that there was this missing link. And I think for me, I started working as an administrator at the company I work with now, Chartered Wealth Solutions. I was doing admin. And while I was doing that, I started reading up about life planning. And I came across people like George Kinder, Mitch Anthony. And when I was reading all of that, I said, this is it. This is what I'm looking for. So I mean, that became my beginning trainings, because yes, when I qualified with my postgraduate in financial planning and my CFP designation, nobody had taught me any life skill that I needed to have these kind of conversations. None at all. I knew the technical work, and I was very well equipped with the technical work. But who's the client? The client's a person. And I believe that those skills were as important as my technical skills. So that was the first step.
And then you discovered coaching.
So again, I did the qualification with George Kinder in the life planning. I actually went to the States and I spent a week with Mitch Anthony, and he taught me a lot about life planning, but I still felt like there was something missing that I didn't have. And that's when I started doing a lot of, I could call it self-work. I believe in self-work. I don't believe as planners we can go out there and ask clients questions if we're not prepared to go where we're expecting our clients to go. So I was doing that work, and that work led me to coaching. And it was, I found a missing piece for me. And I carried on, and I got my coaching qualification. And then it was not only that, I started realizing how much better I could listen with clients, how my questioning became better. I watched the responses from clients. They were having aha moments. I mean, it wasn't me telling them, this is what you have to do, and this is what you should be doing. It was us coming up with ideas together. And that's how I came up with the coaching. And I fully, at Chartered Wealth Solutions, I spend a lot of time helping all the new planners, teaching them all these skills, because it's so important in our industry to have these skills.
It is. And Kim, you've got a number of coaching qualifications and certifications, and you hit it on the head. It is absolutely a gap that is missing in the industry, but you're also spot on that you do need to be willing to do that work yourself. And not everyone is willing to turn inward and have those tough conversations and make some of their own tough decisions in life. And if you also don't have, I think, a really innate fascination with people. Like I've always been fascinated with people. I love how they think and make decisions. And I've always been asking questions to learn, what got people to do different things. I think there are a lot of people out there in this industry and profession, and probably listening right now, that have a lot of those qualities and would like to have those conversations with their clients, but they might be stuck in a larger organization that really is focused on selling products and gathering assets. And I had Catherine Morgan in the UK on the podcast recently, and she talked about her experience of working in a bank and trauma that she experienced personally, and how she really felt for her clients. And she started to get in trouble from her manager. She was coming out of these meetings with clients feeling really good that she helped someone, understand something or come to a realization, have their own aha moment. And her manager was like, but you didn't sell them anything? And sharing with people that there is that path in this profession, and it's one that is needed, and it's a huge gap that needs to be filled. So for people that are kind of thinking about that, since you've done multiple coaching certifications and qualifications, where would you recommend they start?
So it's a skill that you're talking about. It's being curious. So, and I do believe that is the future of financial planning. So yep. I think it's financial planning done properly. So for many of those organizations that are not ready for it, I wonder if they're not going to find themselves out of a career. So for anybody that's having that kind of calling inside themselves, and I do believe it is kind of a calling, because we cannot be financial planners and not like people, because we're in the people business and we're in the relationship business. We're not sales people selling products anymore. That for me was the past, and I do believe that this is the future.
Yep.
So there are a lot of options out there, but there are not many that are designed just for financial planners in mind, because we're not coaches in the pure sense. And I stress this. I went on and did my coaching qualification because I'm an achiever by nature. But I don't believe that everybody needs that as a financial planner, but you need the coaching philosophy. Our clients are paying us to come and get some advice from us. So we are not purely coaching them and asking them a question and getting them to repeat it back to us. We are we are using the coaching philosophy, but also with our financial planning knowledge. So for me, there is quite a difference. And I've actually, just all of a few months ago, I started contemplating that I would start teaching financial planners. And I've actually collaborated with the person that I did my coaching qualification with. And we're running a 8-month training program online for financial planners, where we're going to be teaching them coaching. It would be accredited ICF hours. And also in that, I'm going to be sharing my life planning experience. And I'm going to be bringing in my new work that I've been doing with Dr. Brené Brown on the Dare to Lead. Because all of those combinations, I think, just make us way better financial planners. But for other people, there definitely is. There's the George Kinder, which I highly recommend, having done it myself. There's life-centered planners with Mitch Anthony. So there is things out there. You need to find the one that really resonates with you, because at the end of the day, it's not the qualification. It's the end of the day, it's how can you serve your client better.
Yes. And that the ICF, that's the International Coaching Federation. And is that something that planners around the world could join? When is that launching?
So the one that we're doing, it has already launched. I'm actually looking for 15 planners that want to come on the journey, because it would be the first one that I've done. Obviously I've trained the planners at our company, but that's the first one that I would be doing for outside planners, and just putting all these different disciplines. So it's actually all the disciplines that I've done, taking the parts out that I think are good for financial planners, and teaching those. So no, they could already apply for it.
Great. And I'll make sure to get that link from you and link to that in the show notes as well for those that are interested. And tell us more about, you are a certified Dare to Lead facilitator through, as you mentioned, Dr. Brené Brown. What does that encompass?
I don't think I would have done a lot of the work I've done had I not had the encouragement from reading books that Brené Brown had written. So 8 years ago, I read her book, not Dare to Lead. It was Daring Greatly, and the Dare to Lead's her latest book. But when I read Daring Greatly, it talks about this arena that you walk into, and when you walk in, there will be critics and you will fall, but just stay true to your conviction. And if you stay true to your conviction, you will be able to be authentically showing up in the world. And I think for me, when I came into the financial planning industry, I had this dream of having these kind of conversations. But 12 years ago, the industry wasn't ready for it. And I remember standing up at conferences and talking about this kind of stuff, and talking about having a heart connection with your clients. And I had blank stares, and I had people. I remember the one person that I went to and I was really wanting to share everything with. They were head of a top company, and I was sharing all of this, and they said to me, "I'm sure you're telling us all of this so you can put us on the wrong track so that you can come and get our clients." Here I was very, that is a true story.
Wow.
I'm actually sharing with them all about Mitch Anthony, and I wanted them to use the Mitch Anthony tools, and this is the response I got. But I kept up the quote that, from the book, about how I needed to authentically show up. I needed to drop my armor, and I needed to be truly who I am. And in order to do that, I needed to lean into my vulnerability. And I needed to feel that feeling of uncertainty and not be petrified by it, but know that from that I was going to get true courage. And yes, I did a lot of online courses with her, but when she offered her certification, I never seemed to, I don't know, I got declined twice. It's a sore point for me. Okay, I applied twice and I got declined. And then anyway, for my 50th birthday, I said to myself, you know what, put your pride aside, just apply one more time, and maybe this time you'll get onto a certification. And I did. And so last year in March, I went to San Antonio and I got qualified as a Dare to Lead facilitator. And I did it to bring that work back to financial planners. I didn't do it because I want to be a Dare to Lead facilitator. I did it because, for me, if planners could understand their own vulnerability, they would be able to find the courage. If they could become true to their own values, they would be able to help clients too. And around the topic of money, people feel so much shame. And there is so much attached to it. that we need to be able to speak to our clients about it and name it, because if we can't name it, clients can't deal with it. And we as planners just need to be equipped better to be able to have those conversations. And that's how that work fits in for me.
So, Kim, you have said coaching is financial planning done correctly. And you've gone through all these coaches, going through the Dare to Lead certification. What would you say to those people that say that coaching is separate from financial planning and are still doing the more traditional, okay, we're going to have an intro meeting, I'm going to gather all of your documents, I'm going to run an analysis, I'm going to create a traditional financial plan and present it to you?
So to not be judgmental, I think there will still be potentially clients that'll be comfortable there. And if that's the kind of planning you want to do, then that's what you want to do. But for me personally, the aha moments, being able to see the difference that I'm making in a client's life is bringing me a lot of fulfillment. And I just have to look at the clients and the stories that I get from clients. It's often not the fact that their returns were more that they come to thank me about. They come to thank me about completely different things, that they've picked up a musical instrument that they had last picked up when they were 18, or they've managed to go on a trip and take their children on the trip with them and have an experience and a memory. And yes, I think you're able to have a career choice that's a far more rewarding career choice when you're doing that, because when you are only talking about the numbers and the return on investment, you don't have any control over what those investments are actually doing. So how involved are you? You are coming to offer. Your offering for me is not something that you're really making that big a deal of a difference. Whereas when you are able to facilitate these kind of conversations, that's just so much more rewarding.
It is. And that's why when I started my practice, it was all about having the conversations. It would sometimes be multiple meetings in before we ever talked about any money at all, because I believed, and I still do, that you need to figure out what you want your life to look like before creating a plan to get there. And it's exactly the same thing as going on a road trip. It sometimes feels like, the traditional planning is, okay, here's where you live, and I'm going to map out the different places that you could go. But if you're just analyzing what exists now and looking at, okay, save this to get from A to B, that I have found doesn't often resonate with clients. And yes, there are clients that will still go through that. But the reason I did everything different in my business is because I had clients coming to me saying, hey, I got this plan 5 years ago and now it's all out of date. It didn't factor in changing jobs or getting divorced or having a baby. And remembering that financial planning really is a process, not an event. And life continues. Who on earth would have predicted a global pandemic? You can't see that coming. That is not built into any financial plan that has ever been created. So I wholeheartedly believe, and going back to what you said, coaching is financial planning done correctly, because it needs to be that continued engagement. And through coaching, it's not telling the clients, it's that collaborative relationship with them, and having clients realize a lot of the things themselves through the questions that you ask and the great listening that you do.
One thing I want to add to that, and I'm in total agreement, so I couldn't have said it better than you. But one thing that I also find is very interesting to talk to clients about, in order to be able to get them to potentially change some of their money habits, is to help them understand they have a relationship with money. Most of us, or all of us, have a relationship with money longer than we're going to have with virtually anything. We're hearing about it when we're small, we're planning for it when we're dying. But most of us don't really realize where that relationship came from. And I found so many of us, and it's stuff that I've read on, it's factual, form our relationship with money by the time we're 7. So we form this relationship with money. We don't even think about it again. It goes into our unconscious, and then we fast forward 30 years, and we can't understand why we do certain things that we do. And so many times you can say to a client, well, I think you should be doing this. And actually they just do the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And only when I ask them about their money memories, and then they come out with some of those beliefs, and some of those beliefs that are not true at all, that they've just been taught, and they're not true, but they've held onto them like they're absolute reality. And then I work with them through a process where we actually look at, is if it's real or if it's not real, and is it serving them? And if it's not serving them, surely we can rewrite that story. Why do we have to keep repeating? Because we are, as humans, we repeat the same bad habits over and over and over again. So getting rid of some of those bad habits also help them completely change the way they see financial planning, because it's not just what investment you're in. It's also how much spending and the fact that you pay yourself first before you go and buy new cars or new homes. And I think what we're going through now with this pandemic is a lot of people need to look at that and say, do we want this next part of our lives to look like the last part looked like?
Yep. Love that. So Kim, you've done tons of stuff. You've written a book, Retirement. I'll link to that as well. I remember reading that years ago. You actually gave me the copy when we first met 6 years ago, talking about coaching. And one of the other great things that you've done is you started the Women in Finance Network in 2013.
I did. When I entered the industry, there weren't many women. And when I did go to the conferences, I was looking around for support. And let me say, I got a lot of support from men. So it's not that they weren't welcoming and they didn't welcome me into the industry. And mentored me as well. Some of my greatest mentors are men. But what I wanted was women that I could have certain conversations to, and we could relate about the industry together. I've got 3 children. What's it like having 3 children and working? Anyway, so I started it off as small meetings where we would just sit around the boardroom table and invite a few women around who were in the industry, and we started supporting each other. And just over the years, it's grown, and we now have 4 different chapters of Women in Finance Network in South Africa. At most of our events, we sold out with over 100 women that join. But the beauty of it is we don't come there representing our companies. We come there just as ourselves, and we're there to help each other. So if somebody is going through something, they can look on the website, find somebody else that's part of Women in Finance, phone them up, go in for a cup of coffee. There's just this group of people that can identify with each other. And actually, we also learn from each other, and we learn from outside people on a lot of these concepts to support us. Because we have incredible empathy as women. So we bring beautiful skills to our industry. And I always encourage all the women at Women in Finance is you need to show up as yourselves. Don't try and mold yourself to be more like potentially the men that you're working with, because the combination of you together is what's so brilliant.
Wonderful. So that's something I think anyone around the world can start. I do think it's great to have that locally, like you said, chapters, actually being able to meet in person. I love doing things virtually, but I think there is definitely a place once we can get out there and meet people. Get out there and meet people in person. And Kim, in the last minute or so here, how are you staying connected with your clients? How are they feeling during this time? And how are you sort of coaching them through this incredibly tough time?
So, as you said earlier, I work with people in retirement. So my average age client is in their 60s. And it has been a challenge. So the first thing we had to start off doing was doing Zoom lessons and team lessons in order to be able to help us be able to meet virtually. But I had an event today, which I think we had 128 clients on, and we were doing a virtual meeting. But for me, it's been a beautiful growth period, watching them learn how to communicate. And obviously lots did know how. We are, if I could say, I think they feel really supported because we're communicating more, way more newsletters. So we do a lot of newsletters. We've started also a podcast series, so we're sending out podcasts. So we're communicating a lot. but we also just, the understanding is that we're there for them, that they're not alone out there worrying about what their investments are doing or what they're not doing. We are continually, we're proactive, we're phoning up, we're having one-on-one meetings, we're having the virtual meetings. And I think just by being more proactive, I think it's been quite interesting to see. We've had more thank yous than we had in the years before, where we put on really fancy big events and we were sending gifts. People just love to know that they're cared for. And I think the big skill for any of us planners right now is empathy and understanding what real empathy is with people. And it's connecting, letting them feel that they've been seen and they've been heard. And I think that's all, as we all want to connect better.
Yes. And like you said, that can often be so much more impactful than a big fancy event. It's that personal connection is what really matters, and knowing that people truly do care. So Kim, any last words for listeners? Any challenges for them to take as they are navigating their way through the profession?
Well, just to say that I think it is the most incredible profession. I think the fact that we can, and I think it's an honor and a privilege to work in this industry and to do this kind of work, because everybody has to find a way to find peace with money and find a way that money can be in its proper place. And when I say money in its proper place, we want money really to be the servant. So I see, and I encourage everybody to grow with it and to not say, I can't do that, I'm not that kind of person. Even if you do one of the things and you see how your client responds differently to you, then that'll encourage you to do the next one. And I think you going on this growth of learning, you'll be able to take your clients on this growth of learning too. So huge encouragement out there just to keep up the good work and to keep finding ways that we can help clients have better relationships with money.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show, Kim.
Thank you, Kate, for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Innovating Advice Show. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and shoot me a thought or two. Link to my profile is right below. Stay safe, stay well, and I look forward to hearing from you.